Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. Now obviously in the build up to a fight between Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, there are going to be so many opinions and so many people who think Anthony Joshua will win and so many who believe that Tyson Fury will win. Now we know that Tony Bellew is a fan of Anthony Joshua and he's going to come down on that side. He's previously said he believes AJ knocks him out, and there has been some comparison in performances against opponents that they have shared, like Vladimir Klitschko. They have also shared the ring with Kevin Johnson, each of them have, and AJ knocked him out in a couple of rounds. Tyson Fury went 12 rounds with him. Does that then mean that Anthony Joshua will beat Tyson Fury because of that fact? No, it doesn't. Styles makes fights and we know that. Now, the Klitschko performance for Anthony Joshua, he got more stuck in. He was there trading with Klitschko. He was more positive, I'd say, than Tyson Fury was in there with Klitschko. Tyson Fury's game plan was there for everyone to see. He was going to box off the back foot, make him miss, make him pay, be the bigger man in the fight, pull him around when he had to, and just make it really difficult and a hard night's work for Vladimir Klitschko. That was the game plan for Tyson Fury. AJ's game plan was a little bit different. It was to get into range, land a few short shots, and then get off again. So even though AJ was 18 stone and probably heavier than he would normally be, still, that was his game plan, to land some short shots, land fast counters as well, and get in and out. Don't stay there too long and don't wait for him to land punches, because AJ had the speed on Klitschko in that fight, just as Tyson Fury did. So both of them did in some way use that to their advantage. Now, Tony Bellew explained that Tyson Fury's performance with Klitschko was quite boring, and he even said that he's seen bigger robberies in Germany if Klitschko were to get the victory. This is what he had to say. If Fury didn't get that decision versus Klitschko, would that have been a big shock? I've seen bigger robberies in Germany. It was a close fight, but I think Fury won, but he beat him in the dullest, worst performance of the heavyweight titles I've seen. So that is quite a damning assessment of Tyson Fury's performance against Vladimir Klitschko. Let's remember what he had to do. He had to go over to Germany in front of, 60,000 fans? Some of them were British fans, so they flew over, but still, it was make or break time. A champion needs to be able to go into someone's backyard, stay calm under pressure, and still perform their game plan and to get the victory. That is what Tyson Fury was able to do when he went over to Germany, and he did win the fight. Let's have no dispute about that. Fury did win that fight against Klitschko. It's just when Anthony Joshua fought him, it seemed more conclusive because he got the knockout. And there can be no doubt about it, Anthony Joshua's fight with Klitschko was more entertaining, it had more drama and more moments where you thought, is AJ going to pull through this? But he was able to. So I guess you could say Anthony Joshua shown a lot more in his fight with Klitschko than Tyson Fury did, because at times Tyson Fury didn't necessarily need to. He didn't need to show that heart that he had to get up and continue, because he was never in that position in the fight, whereas Anthony Joshua was. But then again, Anthony Joshua fought him in his 19th fight. Tyson Fury fought him in, his 24th, 25th fight. So AJ was more of a raw professional when he got in there with Klitschko. Many fighters wouldn't be fighting someone like that in their 19th fight. So if you're going to compare the two of them, you have to factor in every single aspect, and one of those aspects is Anthony Joshua wasn't as experienced as the Tyson Fury was. Now, Tony Bellew went further in comparing these two fighters as to say if he was teaching a young fighter what he would do and which style he would prefer to teach them, and this is what he had to say about that. If I'm teaching a kid to fight, I don't want to make him fight like Anthony Joshua. I'm sorry. I want to make him fight like Tyson Fury because he takes such little damage. The art of boxing is to hit and to not get hit. Fury gets hit a lot less than Anthony Joshua. So there we go, that is what Tony Bellew has had to say about that. So in his first statement, he was quite damning of Tyson Fury's abilities and what he was able to do in the ring with Klitschko. But then, in the second instance, he was talking about how he would rather someone fight like Tyson Fury if he was teaching a kid to fight a certain way. So that does kind of contradict his statement in some ways, but still, I guess you could say he's playing devil's advocate when he explains Anthony Joshua had a more explosive and exciting victory over Klitschko and Tyson Fury's was a bit dull, and kind of maybe Klitschko could have got the decision if they were planning to do a robbery or give it to Klitschko even though he wasn't deserving of the victory. So he says that, then he goes and says, yeah, but if I was training someone, I would rather them fight like that, like Tyson Fury, as opposed to Anthony Joshua, to take less damage. So you can look at it from one perspective and think that maybe Fury's fight wasn't that exciting against Klitschko, but then again he doesn't get hit a lot, so if you're training someone to come through, you don't want them to be taking all that much punishment, so you train them to fight like Tyson Fury to be elusive and to avoid those shots. Now, at the moment, we're seeing Anthony Joshua be a bit more like that. Not like Tyson Fury, but a bit more elusive and avoiding shots and countering as well. He done that in there with Andy Ruiz in the second fight. And that is of course to ensure longevity in the sport and to be able to continue longer and not risk getting caught and countered like in the first Andy Ruiz fight when he doesn't need to, when he can stick behind his boxing, and if it does go a few more rounds, he's in control anyway. So if he's controlling everything with his jab, his movement, and his hard stiff right hands, and his uppercuts, his left hooks, his combinations on the inside as well, if he is controlling everything with that, he doesn't need to lose his shape and rush in. So he can be more elusive, he can box on the outside, he can get close if he wants to as well, but he can do it many different ways instead of just getting stuck in and going blow for blow with his opponent. You cannot do that at this level, and Anthony Joshua understands that, so that is the reason behind that kind of more elusive style, stepping back and making Pulev fall short, then countering, out-jabbing him as well at times in the fight. So that was very important for Anthony Joshua and will be going forwards, especially into a Tyson Fury fight where it might be cagey, it might be awkward, but considering his last couple of performances, he's matured a lot and he's learned to be a lot more patient when he, say, gets his opponent hurt, or even if he has to go 12 rounds, then he'll do that to get the victory because he can box his way there if he must. So when you consider that, perhaps the Andy Ruiz Jr. loss came at maybe not the best time for Anthony Joshua, but at an opportune time, so that his next two performances, because they would be the next two performances going into the Tyson Fury fight, Andy Ruiz again, then Kubrat Pulev, those two performances have shown a different side of Anthony Joshua. He is still the same fighter, I don't think he's changed all that much. He's using certain things we've seen in his career before, and utilising certain fundamentals that he's always had and used, but using them more frequently, because at this level you cannot just go blow for blow with your opponent, because you risk then being countered from a highly skilled fighter at this kind of level. So AJ has adjusted in his fights. He will not fight Tyson Fury the same way he fought Ruiz, or Pulev, because he didn't fight Pulev the same way he fought Ruiz. It will require a completely different game plan. A game plan that Anthony Joshua has now proven he's patient enough and mature enough to carry out. Now guys, there has been a bold move made by Joshua Warrington in vacating his IBF World Championship and avoiding his mandatory. Well, not necessarily avoiding his mandatory, but trying to make bigger fights. Now, Kid Galahad will be ordered against Jazza Dickens for the vacant IBF World title. Now obviously Kid Galahad had his world title opportunity against Joshua Warrington and lost in a close decision. So he will have his opportunity at a world title. He will likely win that because he's already beaten Jazza Dickens in 2013. So Kid Galahad will likely get that IBF World title, and he's also going to sign with PBC apparently in a 4-fight deal. So he believes that he will be getting the likes of Gary Russell Jr. before Josh Warrington in making this deal with PBC. I'm not so sure because I've seen PBC fighters signed from the UK like Chris Eubank Jr. with big names on that platform, yet the big fights still haven't been made. I mean, Chris Eubank Jr. went over there to fight the likes of Charlo. They stuck him in there with James DeGale, which was a good fight, fair enough. It didn't turn out the way they expected, but still, you know, what can you do? But then there was the Korobov fight. Then he was inactive for over a year, and they still didn't get him a big fight. He has now signed with Sauerlands, and they are talking with Eddie Hearn. Sauerlands has already contacted Eddie Hearn to talk about big fights with Chris Eubank Jr. in them. So, considering that, he can go with Sauerlands, who don't have a deal like Sky Sports, BT, or DAZN ESPN in the US, yet still, he's going to get better fights with the Sauerlands, considering they don't have those platforms and fighters. He's going to get more fights with them, as opposed to when he was with PBC, and they had the big names. So, it's all very well to have that prospect there of these big fights, but they need to prove that they are going to make them for Kid Galahad. That is the difference. They didn't with Chris Eubank Jr. The question is, will they with Kid Galahad? If he becomes IBF World Champion, then he's going to have a better position going into fights like that. So maybe he will get those big fights, but still, you have to admire what Josh Warrington is doing. Vacating so he doesn't have to fight a mandatory, and therefore, he can go and make the big fights. I like what Josh Warrington is about. He's about the big fights, the big names, and that is what is important. Not what's around your waist. It's about who you fought and who you've beaten. That will determine your place in history and your legacy. That is more important at the moment, considering all of what is going on with these world titles and governing bodies, the fights are more important. Josh Warrington is an advocate of that, and he's proven it by vacating to make the bigger fight. So I just hope that he hasn't lost any kind of momentum and standing by no longer having a world title, but you have to admire his motivation behind vacating that IBF world title. Guys, anyway, what are your thoughts on this? Pick your favourite subject, leave your thoughts in the comments below, also leave a like and a subscribe if you are new. Thanks guys.